All right, guys, today we're going to be giving you a guide on the corrupted Nightfall this week. Let me just go ahead and say, though, this is the buggiest Nightfall ever presented to us. Getting platinum in this Nightfall is buggy. Champions and where they spawn is buggy. Loot is buggy. So much so, people are getting a horse lease. Now, by the way, it's not even updated, which it never was supposed to be. But look here, level 0. The hell is this? On top of that, we ran 5 Master Nightfalls yesterday and got no new loot. As in no swarms or no palindromes. I guess technically not new loot. But regardless though, these weapons were not dropping for us. Should you do the corrupted? Only if you want to feel pain. And I'm pretty much a glutton for it. So guys, this is today's guide. First up, modifiers. You got Emet. Taking combatants generate blight geysers when defeated. The most annoying thing ever. Unstoppable champions. Overload champions. Attrition. Yeah, you just thought this Nightfall was bad. Throw in attrition. You gotta defeat enemies to get those wells of light to actually heal yourselves. Super annoying. Champions mob. And of course, Sadia's Durance. Arc damage is increased. Knockback damage and distance also increase. I don't know who at Bungie decided to give us these modifiers, but I hope they step on a Lego. A really small, tiny Lego in the middle of the night. Hands down though, that last modifier, Sadia's Durance, super annoying. This means that the boss can pretty much one-hit you with ease. And you can try things to combat that. Arc resist, concussive dampener, whatever. But let me just let you know up front, it's a good chance you're gonna get booped off the map. And if you stand too still, you're just gonna get one-hit KO by the boss. Which is why you're gonna see us incorporate a lot of things. Number one, like most of the other Techians, like in Last Wish and others, crit multiplier on this boss is higher. So you wanna use weapons that does precision damage. And this season, one of the best weapons for that is of course Sleeper, although you can use things like Threaded Needle or other linear fusions. We were using 1K voices, but we were almost able to one-face this boss every single time, and maybe had we got our timing right, we would, but of course, she enters this immunity phase where she pretty much moves to that Shattered Realm. But Sleeper overall is extremely nice, guys. I think it actually has very good ammo economy, and if you happen to mess up, it's no problem, as it actually has some pretty good body shot damage as well, in comparison to other linears. Granted, you do burn up an exotic slot here, but if you can land precision shots, Sleeper is very, very good, and we very much enjoy it on the boss phase when combined with the Boom Strat. Again, with all things, the Boom Strat normally involves stacking 2 buffs and 2 debuffs. This is kind of like a semi-boom, or like a mini boom, or like a half boom. It doesn't quite have everything. We're not rocking a tether. However, we are still taking advantage of things like focusing lens, particle deconstruction. I'm rocking Revenant, throwing out stasis abilities, applying stasis, standing in a well of radiance, and of course that well of radiance is buffing our weapon damage and stacking there with focusing lens. That stacks on stacks, baby. The damage is almost high enough to kill this boss very, very quickly. Now let's talk about team synergy and what we're using. As always, guys, I'm normally the one playing support. I'm providing ammo for my teammates. If you have not rocked Aeon Gauntlets, I advise you check it out with Sect of Insight. This is one of the best exotics for Master and Grandmaster Nightfalls, as you can easily provide both heavy and special ammo for your teammates. Now, in terms of other exotics, Les and Bombab both were rocking Well of Radiance, as attrition is a thing here, and it's annoying. But Bombab is actually rocking Stag, and by the way, guys, if you have not been using Stag in both PvP and PvE, I suggest giving it a try. It's very, very good. You can be so tanky inside of those rifts. And of course, getting those rifts back to back goes hand in hand with this exotic and working with your teammates. And when we talk modifiers like attrition, the Stag is actually one of the best exotics to counter that. Les was actually rocking Phoenix Protocol just so he can get his super back-to-back quicker. And in terms of weapons, you pretty much got the rainbow in this Nightfall, right? You've got arc shields, void shields, and a lot of them, and solar shields, especially in that boss room. You got to have all 3 here, and preferably weapons. I know a lot of us like to just use our subclasses to deal with some shields, but there's just so many of all these different shields that everyone needs to be rocking one of these elements. Bombab is actually rocking Third Axiom, which is a pulse rifle. It does arc damage, and of course he can use it to stun unstoppable champions. There's actually some pretty good rolls you can get. I was actually rocking Love Monarch 1 run for the void shields, and of course Love Monarch is actually one of the best weapons when it comes to stunning overload champions, simply because of that damage over time. Just applying a single shot, even if you don't get the initial stun, that damage over time will eventually stun that champ. However, I did find a few runs afterwards that No Composure was actually doing really well for me. Combination of Reservoir Bursts with particle deconstruction, that explosion Explosion, of course, applies that debuff to the surrounding enemies. And I was actually using this Whispering Slab here with Vorpal and Archer's Tempo. One of my best rolled bows, although I do find that bows that have an explosive perk, like this Arsenic Bite that has explosive head, anything with like explosive rounds is one of the best weapons to use, or one of the best traits to use against overload champions, as it just has a little more consistency in its stun. Now, in terms of mods, everyone's different, man, and in the past, we would use things like High Energy Fire. For me, though, especially this Nightfall, I'm still crutching on Protective Light, simply because so much in this Nightfall can kill you and kill you so fast. There are other things, though, that I want you to consider in this Nightfall, considering things like Attrition. Recuperation is one of them, where you can replenish health each time you pick up an orb. It's a solar-based mod. Another one is Better Already, where your health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up an orb. Little things like this, guys, can go a long way in keeping you alive. Just little subtle mods that you can put in for pretty much next to nothing on your costs. Now, let's talk about the Nightfall itself. This is a long Nightfall, guys. Prepare to spend roughly 30 minutes. I think the best run we got was a little over 22 minutes, and that's pretty much where you're going to stick at. This is not Lake of Shadows. This is not a Nightfall that you're going to be able to get those sub 15 to 10 minute runs. This is a slow, methodical Nightfall, and it starts off hot. This whole area has a ton of ads. It has a number of champions, as well as a big, thick boss at the end. Really, in this area, guys, take it slow, pop those void shields, deal with those acolytes, because they'll just sit there and keep multiplying one after another, and then proceed to move up. What you really need to be concerned about in this area is dealing with the champions from afar when you get closer to that boss. There'll be champions on the cliff side, and it will become even more so in Grandmaster Nightfalls, where those champions will just stack up on one another. You can imagine those champions in combination with those taken shields. Super annoying. So staggering what you take out first. Sometimes you want to just take out the Vandals first, because they can easily kill you as well, and maybe then move to the champions. All of this is very difficult when combating attrition, so you definitely want to make sure you stay close and live inside of those rifts. Try to stay close to a rift at all times. Hence why we have 2 warlocks on our team. Now, upon dealing with this boss, you'll then move into this cave area where you think you could just like scoop past everything. No, you will get shredded in this area. Lots of ads that are spread out through here, some invisible and much thicker than you anticipate. You may think it's just a couple of red bar ads. No, sir. They are majors and they are nasty. Sometimes I even used a super in this area just to traverse this area without dying. Although I would say keep your super if you can to get through this area into the next area, which is like that elevator. But upon getting into the elevator room, you have a couple of ads to deal with, and then you'll notice these balls. Now, before you initiate the room, back in the day, you used to be able to stack up balls there on the side. Bungie actually fixed that. The balls will despawn. However, you can still pass the balls back and forth to each other, get them charged up, and at least have 3 of them there for your fire team to hold. That way, as soon as the shielded enemies do spawn in, you can immediately pop those shields and deal with them in whatever way you want. Normally, I found myself the only one picking up the balls to actually throw at the bosses, as all of these guys spawning in are essentially mini bosses. You really want to have your team together to all throw balls at the same time, and probably just 2 of them, if it gets the AoE off, will pop those shields. But don't sit on your supers here, especially with things like attrition, guys. Whoever it is rocking Well of Radiance needs to throw it down, especially my Phoenix user. You'll get your super back in no time. Now, you have 2 waves of this, and the second wave is a little more of a struggle, as you'll be juggling not only these balls, but you'll have to juggle it around all this taken icky on the ground, and of course that rotator there in the middle that can instantly kill you. It can get overwhelming very quickly, which is why I think a stasis super at this spot is pretty nice, as even if you don't pop the shields there in the middle, right off the top, at least you can stun all the enemies or freeze them and keep them locked in place as you begin to pass the balls back and forth to each other, and then proceed to pop those shields. The only problem with this spot, and pretty much this entire room, is the enemies do tend to kind of split from each other. So occasionally, you'll have one of these mini bosses go around the other side and sneak up behind you. And believe me, they can easily kill you and your entire fire team if they're still shielded. Now, the next phase opens up when the elevator door opens. You'll have an unstoppable champion ready to greet you, as well as a number of ads. Deal with them from afar. Again, for my people that are rocking particle deconstruction, especially in combination with things like Sleeper, get a fusion rifle shot off first. Les was actually rocking a Cartesian, which is a fantastic weapon in the sandbox, as you can roll it with Vorpal. But getting a single shot off first will apply that immediate debuff, which is a 40% debuff. You really want to get particle deconstruction rolling way before you ever start shooting those sleeper shots for both champions and for bosses, which is why things like Cartesian, No Composure, all of these fusion rifles are really, really good, as they can apply that debuff at its max with a single shot. And again, when it comes to the boom strat and focusing lens, this isn't just something that can be taken advantage of against the boss. This can be taken advantage of throughout the entire Nightfall. When you're standing in a well of radiance, when you have particle deconstruction procced on enemies, when you have stasis that's being applied to enemies, whether it's through your super, your shurikens, your grenades, all of this is stacking on damage. Focusing lens at 25%, well of radiance at 25%, particle deconstruction at 40%. All of this is stacking, really amplifying that damage. Now, this open area has a number of Shriekers. It has a couple of champions here. Again, whoever it is that's rocking Aeon Gauntlets, I actually take this time to go ahead and get a couple finishers off. This, of course, produces ammo for my teammates. You really want to get your ammo capped off here before moving into this next room, which is the trippiest room in the entire Nightfall. I would say this is the reason why this Nightfall gets so buggy, as this is the room where it's very likely that you'll miss a champion, which can result in you not getting platinum. Now, the room starts off in the normal side of the temple, and then we'll teleport you to like the Shadow World temple version. Now, originally, if you kill the boss really fast in one side, it would keep you from teleporting, and you wouldn't even have to kill the other champions and still get platinum. However, that's not the case here. You have to be teleported every single time and make sure you kill the champions on either side, even if they despawn. For some reason, this Nightfall, it'll still mess up, guys. Again, this is why I say this Nightfall is so annoying. It's just not consistent, and overall, I just think Bungie hasn't updated it. When teleporting back and forth, though, in the Shadow Realm portion, you'll have a number of unstoppable champions that normally will come up to the right of the stairs if you hug that right side. I would suggest standing on that side, as you got a little bit of protection from the boss, and you can funnel those enemies up the stairs to you. You got high ground. However, you got to deal with a lot of shields, a lot of void shields, a lot of solar shields. Be prepared, whoever it is that's rocking those elements, to take care of those shields very quickly, because you can easily get overwhelmed in this area with all these champions and ads coming at you. And it's kind of hard to pop a super in either one of these sides because you're just going to get teleported 10-15 seconds later. But deal with those champions quickly, and you've got, I want to say, 3 unstoppable champions on the Shadow Realm side, and I want to say 2 unstoppable champions on the regular temple side. Again, we never got platinum, and this is where things get even crazier. From what Esoteric says, sometimes you actually did get platinum, but the game still gave you gold. So yeah, needless to say, the strike is a buggy mess. And this is, of course, going to be even more annoying when the Grandmaster comes out. Hopefully, Bungie might actually update this Nightfall to be a little more consistent here. But this whole area is the most hectic portion of the Nightfall. Well, outside of maybe the boss room. I feel like I'm like explaining a raid almost, because there's just so much in this Nightfall. I actually really love this Nightfall, guys. I'm a big fan. Aesthetically, it's a beautiful Nightfall, but it is one of the most annoying Nightfalls in the game. Now, upon dealing with all these ads and these champions on either side, you can begin to kill the bosses, those big ogres in the middle. You'll kill them. If you're on the Shadow Realm side, you go to the little teleporter and you'll open up and see a couple unstoppable champions in front of you, as well as a number of ads. Deal with those unstoppable champions. This is also a great time to bait them towards you, get some finishes off, produce some heavy ammo for your teammates, and then proceed to move up. Now, before you start looking down in that middle area, you will have ads on either side. In this Nightfall, it's just a couple of ads with some void shields. They are majors, of course, but in Grandmaster, they're gonna be overloads. Deal with those ads, though, because they can snipe you, and with things like attrition, it's a good chance to one-shot you, but then proceed to deal with the unstoppable champions there in the middle. I find stasis is a great way to just lock them in place while you deal with the ads on either side. And then before you move down to address the little mini boss there at the end, you also have an overload champion on either side. You'll have one on the left and one on the right, and it's really easy to miss both of these guys, so be looking for them. They will for real hide on you, like for real. They'll just back up, drop down, and you'll never know they're there. And then you'll get to the end of the Nightfall and be like, yo, why did I get silver? Well, you got silver because one of these guys hit. So make sure you're double checking yourself as you're going through this Nightfall, and deal with those ads on either side, all those champions, and then proceed to the next area. Now, this next area, before you drop down, there's a couple ways of doing this. Sometimes if you get a little more comfortable, you can just immediately drop. I'm a little more comfortable with it, but honestly, usually I like to get on this edge and just jump off just like this. There's a couple other spots that people like to jump from, but you can kind of just slide right past everything. You do not want to die right here though, guys, because if you die, your body pretty much stays up top and no one can get you up. Not really a big deal in Masters, but in Grandmasters, it pretty much means you have to two-man everything all the way until the end. Yeah, you just think it's aggravating here. Wait till GMs. Now, these next areas, you have a bunch of platforms. Again, aesthetically, this is one of the most pleasing, most beautiful Nightfalls. I love the way it looks, man. Just everything is so annoying. In this area, you have a number of ads here, and I actually like to use a super right here just to lock everything in place, whether it's my stasis super or well of radiance, just something to keep you alive, because there's a lot of ads that are invisible in this spot, and you're like, yo, just a couple ads down here. Nope. You'll find yourself surrounded very quickly. Now, going into the boss area, you're going to have 2 overload champions to deal with. And I'm pretty sure in the Grandmaster Nightfall, it will be 4 overload champions to deal with. But right here, deal with the Vandals, deal with those champs, get some finishes off. This is actually a great spot to go ahead and get those final finishers to top ammo off for your teammates. Now, going to the boss room itself. This is the room that can really mess you up. This can turn this Nightfall into a nice little 25-minute Nightfall to all of a sudden a 45-minute Nightfall. What we like to do is we like to get rid of Sadia as quickly as possible. Now, similar to Shuro and other bosses that have high crit multipliers, this is why things like Sleeper or linear fusion rifles or pretty much anything that does crit damage, precision damage is so good here. I know the DPS between 1000 Voices and Sleeper are pretty much neck and neck. They're pretty much the same. But when you have bosses that have a higher, essentially a double crit multiplier, you want to take advantage of weapons that does precision damage. And we're actually taking advantage of a combination of things, including the boom strat minus the tether. Now, the boss room opens up with her shifting to that right side and spawning a bunch of ads. I suggest not burning your super right here. Try to deal with these ads with your weapons, with your neutral game abilities. Let them kind of pull towards you and stick to this middle side, as you do have some obstacles here on either side that can protect you from Sadia. Remember, don't take anything personally against her, even if she boops you, because by the way, she can boop underneath you, which will push you up, and then she will proceed to boop you away, which will boop you off the map and you will inevitably die. But her will is not her own, so she's not doing it purposely. Regardless, after dealing with these group of ads, like you did earlier, you'll have to charge up one of these balls and then throw it at her. What I would suggest is the person that doesn't have to proc particle deconstruction, they need to be the person that throws the ball. I have to get a stasis charge out, and I don't like to use my super here because I want to save it normally, and I'm actually proccing particle deconstruction as well. But proc it for your teammates so they can get the full 40% debuff. You're standing in a well, everyone's using focusing lens, so we're all getting that extra bit of damage on top of well, 40% debuff. You can see right here how quickly we deal with Sadia. Now, back in the day, you used to be able to instantly bang Sadia and kill her, and you're done with the Nightfall. I still feel like we could do it if we timed our shots a little better. However, there was a lot of times that she would just like teleport to the left and then teleport right out. And if you do this correctly, you should do enough damage where she would just teleport right out of the area, and then that portal will open up immediately. If you need to burn a super to get through this area and get to that portal safely, go right ahead. If not, run straight through here and go through that portal. Now, the portal area has a lot of champions on this side, which makes me wonder, even if you do kill Sadia in that other room, maybe you won't still get platinum. Regardless, this room has a lot of champions and a lot of ads. You'll be met with an overload champion, and then past this overload champion, you'll have to deal with an unstoppable champion. And really, Sadia will not go away until you deal with those ads, and you want to deal with them from afar, champions included. If you got to move up and get a finish off, so be it. But after each one of these champions and ads are dealt with and completely cleared, Sadia will continue to retreat until she falls back all the way to this circle area. Now, this area can be extremely annoying, especially if you allow her to boop you. It's easy to get booped off here. I like to lock everything in place and run right to the backside and throw my super down. Silence and Squall will continue to just rope everything in, freezing them in place, and then I can move up, grab the charge, pass it to one of my teammates, or of course they pass it to me, one or the other, and we can continue doing damage to her. Overall, if done correctly, guys, she'll be nearly one shot in this room, making her quick work. So guys, that is your corrupted Master Nightfall guide. Is this an annoying Nightfall? Absolutely. Is there an easy way of getting to this Nightfall? No, not really, man. This is just one of those slow, methodical Nightfalls, similar to like Glassway, and I would argue and say corrupted. It's probably just as difficult as Glassway, and it's definitely more annoying considering the boop. And of course, the modifiers on this Nightfall, which even increases that knockback even more. You stack that with modifiers like attrition, and yep, you're in for a rough time. Regardless though, guys, hopefully this guide will help you. She has a higher crit multiplier, and I do have a couple of ideas of potentially gunning her down real quickly. Part of me wonders if something like double Celestial Nighthawk can instantly gun her down or not, as that's like immediate instant damage, and maybe we can bypass that second room. However, considering that this Nightfall gets real funky with the despawning of champions, it still might not count towards platinum. But we're going to continue playing with this Nightfall throughout this week and really narrow down even more beyond this what the best loadouts are here to prepare us for the upcoming Grandmaster that will be dropping on October the 5th. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.